For those of you who don't know me, I'm Abby Tennis. It is good to be together this morning. I use she, her pronouns. I have the privilege and honor of serving as your lead minister here, and I'm a white woman wearing a white robe and a purple stole and asymmetrical, mostly brown hair. Remove the sandals from your feet, for the place you are standing on is holy ground. These are the first words that God said to Moses atop Mount Sinai when Moses wandered curiously over to see what was going on with that burning bush. Remove the sandals from your feet. Take off your shoes, for the place on which you are standing is holy ground. Moses had grown up in Egypt and would have recognized this practice of taking off one's shoes in a holy place, both probably from the Egyptian priests and likely his own Jewish people. Back then, it would have been common practice to take one's shoes off before entering a temple, much like it still is when entering a mosque or many other holy sites around the world. When I am looking at religious art, I'm always curious to see who is barefoot. The symbol of being barefoot, of putting one's feet directly touching onto the ground, speaks to me of an embodied and physical and tactile connection with the holy. When people have removed the separation between their own bodies and the earth, I see the rest of the message of the art as particularly meaningful. And so when I first came here to First Unitarian in 2016, and I encountered our elaborate Victorian sanctuary, I wanted to get to know the visual theology of this place. I wanted to see the images and the symbols that adorn us here in this sanctuary and reflect on what it means about who we are, what it says to the people who occupy this space, what it says to people who are new to this space, what it says to those who pass by this space and travel through this space. And at the moment, our visual theology is mostly a nod to our history, right? This sanctuary looks pretty similar to how it looked when we were solely Christian in the late 1800s when this place was built, in the early 1900s when most of the memorial windows went in the walls. The choice to keep our sanctuary looking as it has looked, or as it looked 120 years ago, is a choice in and of itself. It does say that we value our history, which is very rich in this congregation. But it also implies that we haven't changed. It also implies that there haven't been new images or ideas worthy of adorning our primary gathering space in that time, in that 120 years. And so those of you who are staying for our annual meeting know that we will be talking about our vision plan, so what we will be doing with this space and all of our buildings and space in the coming couple of decades. And we have some early plans to make some progress to set right this disconnect, to make sure that the space we're in says who we are now, as well as who we have been over time. But back to the barefooted ones. If we look around this place, particularly if we look at the people who are memorialized in our stained glass windows, we'll see that some of them are barefooted. And if you're with us virtually and you want to take a look at some of those windows, our Friends of 2125 Chestnut Street website has a great gallery of pictures of all of the stained glass windows up on their website. I think there's a link in the chat. Jeff, could you put the link in the chat that's in the thing? So you'll be able to click and go look at them if you want, if you're here with us virtually. Thank you to Joe Elliott. I don't know where Joe is. Joe's over there for compiling that gallery and taking those images. So I'm not a scholar of stained glass or religious iconography of the late 1800s and 1900s. And I don't know what was in the minds of those artists or the people who commissioned them to memorialize their loved ones. But I'm a human being and I love beauty. And I'm someone whose eyes can see. And so these windows speak to me about what matters most to this place. And our two most prominent windows, our rose windows, are something like the headlines of who we are, both of the central And both of the central people in these windows are barefoot, in case you haven't noticed that before. So our prophet, I just want to spend a couple of minutes saying what's happening in our space. What does it tell people about who we are? Our prophet Isaiah window, some of you are turning around right now. This is the window. Some of you know it as by the artist who designed it, who is Lafarge. This is the window that faces the street. It's our one public-facing window. The book of Isaiah, who the prophet here represents, is the longest book in the Bible, but it speaks to all of Abrahamic faiths. And it was put in the wall in a time when we were purely Christian, but it spoke to a multiplicity of religious identities. It says many things, but messages of justice are central throughout the book. And so the way that I choose to distill down the message of that window is to a line from Isaiah 56, devote yourself to justice. Devote yourself to justice. Justice is what love looks like in public, is what Cornel West reminds us. And so it is fitting to me that our public face proclaims that this is a place devoted to justice. And it also seems fitting to me that this is the window that faces your ministers and your worship associates on Sunday morning as we lead worship here. And therefore, it is a reminder to us as well that our devotion to justice must be central in all that we say from the pulpit here. These are a people devoted to justice, our window says. Amen, I say. Our blessed are the pure in heart window, or some of you know it as our Tiffany angel window, is the other one, the one that hangs above the pulpit here. And this is the window that faces you, faces the gathered congregation most prominently. I know that it's the window that your eyes drift up to when the sermon is boring. I get that. It's the window that most people see when they come in here. They see it first when they come in here for the first time. Yeah, thanks, Jeff. Jeff is panning back to try to see it, one of those windows or two of those windows. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God, is what the words from Jesus' Sermon on the Mount are, that are proclaimed in the angel's hands as she kneels and on the world barefoot there above us. And though I know that many in the world interpret those words to mean you must be pure, you must be perfect, or you are never going to meet God and you are not going to heaven, it does not mean that to us. And it's never meant that to us, even in the 1890s when it was put in. For we have always believed in the goodness of people here in the Unitarian Church and now the Unitarian Universalist Church. We have always believed that it is important for us individuals to work to become more ethical in our lives and to work to make the world better in our short time here. And though our understanding of the holy has changed over the years, we have always believed in a boundlessly loving vision of holiness, never a God who would only choose some people over other people. For us, blessed are the pure in heart means blessed are those who are doing their heart work. Blessed are the people working to clear out the barriers to love that live within all of our hearts. Blessed are those who are doing their heart work, for they shall see God everywhere, for they shall see God in everything. Not a message that only the perfect go to heaven, but a reminder that when we do the work of removing the barriers to love within our own hearts, we begin to see everything as holy. These are the people working to remove barriers to love from their hearts, our window says. These are the people who see the holy in everything and in everyone. I think these windows are beautiful, and I pay attention to them because of where they are in our sanctuary, but I pay attention to them because also their figures are barefoot. They are standing on holy ground. You know, they take a little interpretation. I think their messages still speak clearly to who we are at our center today and what has been central to us from the beginning of our founding. But my favorite window is actually a different window. My favorite window is our divine wisdom window, which is the one that's right here to my left. And though this window was installed in the late 1880s, it's an image that represents the divine feminine. Honestly, windows that are installed today, it's still hard to find images that represent the divine feminine. And I know lots of you can't see it right now, so I'm going to describe it, and I encourage you to take a look at it after the service. For those of you who can't see it, it's an image of a woman who is wrapped heavily in a scarlet robe with a thick indigo shawl over it and a white headscarf. She's reading a book as she walks through the forest. And unlike most of our stained glass windows, there's nothing but nature that surrounds her. Curving, twisty trunks of trees that rise up behind her with a lush green canopy over her head. Shrubs and vines, maybe a couple of rocks and flowers on the dirt path beneath her feet. She's not sitting in a church built by the patriarchs and reading a Bible. She's wandering through a twisty, leafy wild and finding divine wisdom there. Her left bare foot peeks out from underneath her robes. And if you place yourself in her position, so if you stand the way she's standing, you find yourself propelled forward. She is in motion. She is in motion. Even if you're standing right facing or sitting right facing the window, you will find it's kind of hard to see. There's some decades of grime on the window. It dims the light that shines through it, but I think it makes her seem more mysterious, so I'm not totally upset about it. The divine is a mysterious thing. Beneath her feet are the words from an ode to women of strength, which is the title of Proverbs 31. She opened her mouth with wisdom, and in her tongue is the law of kindness. And also there are words from Psalm 119 from the wisdom literature, thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. The main reason I make my son go to church, Anne Lamott said in our reading this morning, is that I want to give Sam what I found in the world, which is to say, a path and a little light to see by. I took off my sandals to preach this morning because when I am here, I am reminded that I am standing on holy ground. Not holy as in better than some other place on earth, but holy by how and why we gather. The people who formed this community nearly 228 years ago did not look like us. They did not speak about their faith the way we do. They could not have imagined who this community would become today. But they did begin to lay down a path for us. Somehow, through pandemics and wars and civil upheavals and the Industrial Revolution and technological revolutions, we have kept lit the little light that illumines the path that we widen as we journey together. We are a people who devote ourselves to justice. We are a people working to remove barriers within our hearts to love. And we see the holy in everyone and everything. The divine wisdom that we know is feminine, and it's also masculine, and it's also non-binary, and we find it in our relationships with each other and with the wild and with the words of prophetic people from around the world and across time as much as we find it here in these pews. Our religious ancestors laid down the beginning of a path. And if there's any holy current that has carried this community forward over that time, it is that we have been widening the path of belonging as we have journeyed. We have been widening the path of belonging as we journey. The original, one of the history buffs here is going to get me on this. Were we formed by 12 or 16 people to begin with? Anyone remember? None of us were here. Thanks, Ken. It's true. None of us were here. It was 12 or 16. I'm pretty sure it was one of those two numbers. The original 12 or 16 men who formed this congregation were, I believe, all white British immigrants gathered around a theological idea. Are there any of us who are white male British immigrants now? There might be like one or two in the congregation. Ann Slater's a white Scottish, close enough, yeah, all right. Within a few decades, this place was beginning to talk about the need to abolish slavery. And a few decades later, at some point along the road, we became a multiracial congregation, and we have been for at least 150 years now, 154 years now. At some point along the line, it became a congregation not just of men, but of women as leaders as well. At some place along the line, we began to be making space for lesbian and gay belonging, probably at first, which has widened to, bisexual, queer, transgender, intersexual, asexual, plus, QQQ. I just found out this past week, maybe 2 weeks ago, that the first Pride March in Philadelphia started from the steps of our congregation in 1972. We have widened the path to belonging as we have journeyed. And it is ahead of us at this moment to continue to widen the path of belonging in all of the ways that we have been working to widen it. And particularly, we have a task ahead of us today to widen the path of belonging towards people of all abilities. For those of us who are temporarily able-bodied, we have been able to traverse this congregation without much challenge for a long time. But those of us who use a wheelchair or other mobility devices have had a very tough time in this congregation. And we're trying to set forth a vision of us becoming a place that is fully wide open belonging for people of all physical abilities. And so I hope that many of you will join us in that vote today. Yeah. And we've got a lot more work to do around gender expression, around widening our path to belonging for class, for education, for neurodiversity, for all ages of children and youth, for all people of all races. We have more work to do to widen our path to belonging of people with multi-religious identities. And it is the current that has carried us for 228 years. The song we sang earlier, Tula Klezio, by Joseph Shabalala of Ladysmith Black Mambazo. So the lead singer, the founder of Ladysmith Black Mambazo, is the one who wrote that song. And he wrote it in 1987 or 1988 in a cab in New York City. At the time, he was homesick for his native South Africa, and he missed his children. And because of the unfair apartheid laws that were in place at that time, he didn't know if or when he would see them again. And so sitting in that cab, so far away from home, lonely and alienated and isolated and disconnected, he was calmed by the thought of Tula Klezio Nala Pasekaya, be still my heart, for even here I am at home. Be still my heart, for even lonely, even disconnected, here I am at home. We know that the work of those who are at the edges of widening our path to belonging is harder for those in the center, right? Anytime you traverse a path for the first time, you get whacked in the face with some sticks. There might be more rocks or more slippery grass. There's more stumbling. There's more discomfort when you are the person whose body is at the edge of widening that path to belonging. We know that that was true for the first women who were moving into leadership here. Surely it was true for Black congregants like Frances Ellen Watkins Harper, who came to this congregation as early as the 1870s. We know that it was surely true for the people who held multi-religious identity when we were primarily a Christian congregation, for the first lesbian and gay people when we were primarily a straight congregation. And surely it was challenging for the person who uses a wheelchair to roll up that horrible plywood ramp that we used to have on our entrance over there, and this horrible plywood ramp that we still have in here, at least until this summer. It is uncomfortable to be someone whose body is responsible for widening everyone's path to belonging. Sometimes it can feel lonely. Sometimes it can feel alienated and disconnecting. Sometimes we need to hold our hand on our hearts and say, be still my heart, for even here I am at home, when we are one of those people. But the choice that we have always had, and we certainly have today, is for us to become people who take turns widening that path together, people who rotate in and out of the center of widening that path. We can choose as a whole congregation to take turns at the edge to relieve some of the burden of getting whacked in the face with those sticks and stumbling on those extra stones, slipping and working harder with our bodies in order to make space available for those who would come behind us. White people can work against racism here, and straight people and cis people can work for LGBTQ rights. Temporarily able-bodied people can work to make our spaces and our practices more accessible. Anne Lamott says, the main reason I want to give Sam what I found in the world, which is a path and a little light to see by. I want to give him what the people who I know who are doing well psychologically, who seem conscious, the people who feel safe, who have what I want to have. I want to give him connection and gratitude to joy. And these people all have a deep sense of spirituality. They are in community, these people. They're people who pray and they practice their faith. They follow a brighter light than the glimmer of their own candle. A human life is like a single letter of the alphabet, and it can be meaningless, or it can be a part of great meaning. My friends, I feel so grateful to be here with you, many single letters of an alphabet together forming great, great meaning. We are a people devoted to justice. We are a people doing the hard work to remove barriers to love within us. We see the holy everywhere. We hear divine wisdom everywhere. May we widen our path of belonging until there is nothing but the path. May it be so, and amen.
Hi, I'm Reverend Hannah Capaldi.
And I'm Reverend Abby Tennis. We are the ministers at the First Unitarian Church of Philadelphia, where our mission is to awaken love and justice in our lives and in the world.
We're so grateful that you watched, and we hope that the sermon connected with your soul.
We also want to invite you to join us for a live worship service every Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. You can always find the link to that service on our website at www.philauu.org. In these services, you'll hear words like you've just heard, and you also get a chance to greet one another, pray together, sing together, and we even hold a virtual coffee hour after services to get a chance to greet some new and old friends.
If you want to support the mission of this community and you feel moved to give, you can do so by going to the website that Reverend Abby just mentioned. You can find that link below, or you can text 215-709-5095 and follow the prompts to give.
If someone in your life needs to hear these words today, we encourage you to share this video. And again, thank you so much for watching.
We hope to see you soon.